Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a crucial breakdown right here on Rehab Haven. We're talking about your brain, your future, and a massive, real game changer in how we approach our health. You know, for way too long, we've just kind of settled for passive awareness of stroke risks. Well, today, we're shifting gears. We're going to build an empowering daily architecture for a vibrant life. Specifically, we're looking at how to build a stroke-preventive lifestyle before you even hit the big 5-0.
Let's kick things off with this incredibly powerful paradigm shift from Dr. Joseph Ntiamoah. Quote, "The best time to prevent a stroke was 20 years ago. The second best time is today." Man, that really hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It's just such a vital reminder that it's literally never too late, and definitely never too early, to take absolute control of our brain health. Whether you're 25 or 45, the actions you take right now, today, are exactly what's going to define your cognitive future.
And that brings us to the ultimate goal here, the invisible victory. Think about it for a sec. No one writes obituaries for the strokes that didn't happen, right? Nobody holds Thanksgiving services for the disability that was prevented. But that's exactly what we want to focus on, these silent, invisible victories. The major strokes and TIAs that are quietly stopped in their tracks every single day, just because someone made the choice to protect their brain. That's the win we're aiming for.
So here's the blueprint for today's explainer. First, the foundation, 6 pillars. Second, the blueprint, behavior change. Third, timelines, priorities by your age. And finally, legacy, building community. Let's get right into it.
Part 1. The foundation, 6 pillars. All right, so these 6 pillars are basically the architecture of a stroke-preventive lifestyle. And honestly, try not to look at these as restrictions. It's more like a framework for living a fuller, more vibrant life. We're talking about the daily choices you need to make to protect your brain. It all starts with Pillar 1, knowing your numbers, things like your blood pressure, fasting glucose, and BMI. Then we move on to moving your body for at least 150 minutes a week, eating right, prioritizing sleep, and rigorously protecting your mental health from chronic stress. All 6 of these are absolutely crucial, but there is one that really stands above the rest. And that brings us to Pillar 2, relentless blood pressure control. Listen, if you have hypertension, getting your blood pressure under control is literally the absolute highest yield thing you can do to save your arteries. Here's the scary part. Hypertension has absolutely 0 symptoms until it actually damages a vessel. It's like a silent alarm you can't hear. That means you've got to take your medication consistently, even when you feel totally fine, cut back on the salt, and check your numbers at home regularly. Another massive piece of the puzzle is Pillar 4. Eating for your arteries. You know, every single time you sit down for a meal, you're making a decision about the internal environment of your blood vessels. And what's really amazing here is that simply returning to a traditional Ghanaian whole food culture is incredibly protective. We're talking about food that's naturally packed with veggies, whole grains, and oily fish, while keeping the salt and refined carbs way, way down. You don't need some crazy fad diet. You just need to get back to those traditional whole food roots. 7.5. So what's that number? That's the average hours of high-quality sleep you need every single night. Look, getting 7 to 8 hours is completely non-negotiable. Why? Because while you're asleep, your brain goes to work like a nighttime cleaning crew, actively repairing its blood vessels and flushing out metabolic waste. If you cut that time short, you are literally stockpiling stroke risk with every single sleepless night.
Moving on to Section 2, the blueprint, behavior change.
Okay, so knowing what to do is really only half the battle, right? The actual magic is in making these habits stick. And this comparison is super interesting. Willpower versus environmental design. Relying on willpower alone is a total trap. Willpower is finite, it burns out fast, especially after a long, stressful day. But designing your environment, that is persistent. If you want to make sure you take your blood pressure meds, just leave the bottle right next to your breakfast bowl. If you want to protect your sleep, charge your phone in a completely different room. The trick is to make the healthy choice the absolute easiest, default choice. Because if you're going to maintain these pillars over a lifetime, you absolutely need a system. You've got to share your goals with your community. That builds up social accountability. You need to measure your progress too, whether that's tracking your daily steps or keeping a blood pressure log, because what gets measured gets managed. And honestly, this next part is huge. You have to plan for the inevitable setbacks and do it with self-compassion instead of beating yourself up. So you missed a workout? Okay. What's your recovery plan for tomorrow? That is how you build sustainable prevention.
Section 3, timelines, priorities by your age.
As we keep building this architecture, you'll see that your priorities naturally shift as the decades roll by. This table breaks it down brilliantly. In your 20s, your main focus is just establishing those good habits and staying far away from tobacco, checking your blood pressure once a year. Then, as you hit your 30s, the priority pivots a bit toward diabetes prevention and keeping an eye on your waist size. By the time you're in your 40s, that's when you really need aggressive risk factor control, getting all your metabolic parameters checked annually. Basically, the earlier you get the ball rolling, the smoother those later decades are going to be.
Section 4. Legacy. Building community.
Now, we don't live in a vacuum, right? Our environment heavily shapes the choices we make. So prevention has to be woven into the very fabric of our faith communities. We spend so much of our time and energy in these spaces. By bringing health education and regular blood pressure screenings right into our church and mosque programs, we can make looking after our health a normalized, totally celebrated part of our spiritual lives.
And the same goes for the workplace. We spend roughly a third of our lives at work, so employers really need to step up and make genuine structural changes. We're talking about building in dedicated physical activity breaks, actually providing healthy food options in the cafeteria, and making mental health support easily accessible. These shouldn't be optional perks. They need to be core components of employee wellness.
When it comes to our schools, if we want to protect the next generation, we have to start prioritizing physical education again. It's also about getting kids to understand cardiovascular risk nice and early. That way they go home and actually become active participants in family health conversations. Who knows, they might even be the ones pushing their parents to eat a little better and move a little more. Finally, within the healthcare system, especially at proactive centers like Rehab Haven, we've got to rethink our whole approach. Every single clinical encounter, whether you're just popping in for a sprained ankle or doing a routine checkup, has to be transformed into an opportunity. An opportunity to screen your blood pressure, assess your risk, and ultimately protect a brain. Prevention isn't just some separate side service. It has to be the fundamental orientation of care. Section 5. Your prevention commitment. So, we've gone through the foundation, the blueprint, and the community legacy. And all of that brings us right here, to your personal commitment. I really want you to take a second and think about this question. What does living to 80 or 90, with your cognitive and physical functions fully intact, actually mean to you? What is that life worth protecting? Think about the family members you want to be there for. Think about the milestones you want to celebrate, and that sense of independence you want to keep holding on to. Listen, your brain is undeniably worth protecting, and your life is worth living to the absolute fullest. But the time to act is right now, before any symptoms ever show up, before the damage becomes irreversible, and way before a stroke gets the chance to write a story that could have so easily been prevented. Go out there and claim your invisible victory. Begin today. Begin now.